So to continue on our balance sheet, which we were talking about, we left off one very important thing.
Very.
Liabilities.
Debts, they're divided much like the estate.
How's that?
Those factors that we talked about earlier, age, health of the parties, duration of the marriage, lifestyle established during the marriage, all those factors have to be taken in consideration by the court when determining what to divide and how to divide it, if to divide it.
So most people will have a mortgage or typical liabilities, more
Credit cards.
maybe a car payment or that. But then we have those people who have just a large amount of debt. Is that true?
Right, and that's got to be determined as well. Is it marital debt? Was it incurred during the marriage? Is there a presumption that it's marital? Or, for instance, did one of the parties bring in their student loans?
Right. So let's stay with student loans for a second. There's two different kinds of student loans that we really deal with in divorces. One is the party's student loans that they incurred for their education, or then the second one is when the parties have children who are in college and maybe there's Parent Plus loans or other student loans that they're responsible for. True?
Right. We call those 513 expenses because it's governed by Section 513 of the Illinois Marriage and Dissolution of Marriage Act.
And that in 513 deals with college expenses and or disabled children expenses.
Exactly.
And we'll talk more about that.
In each instance, you have to file a petition in order to get the relief.
Okay.
Doesn't come automatically.
And we'll talk about that more when we talk about support, right? Mm-hmm. We'll get into great detail about that because college could be a doozy of an argument.
Absolutely.
Who's going to pay? So, but if we stay with the actual student debt now, let's assume it's incurred. When would a parent be responsible for debts involving their children's student loans?
So if one of the parties files a 513 petition for contribution to college and related expenses, that's when it would come into play.
Okay.
And the court looks at each party's income and assets and ability to pay along with the child's ability to go to school. Do they have the grades, etc.?
Okay. And so those debts can be allocated based on that.
Right. And there's a trend to have the child have some skin in the game. So it's usually a percentage division.
Okay. So let's go to now it's the husband or wife, the spouse who has student debt. Is that marital?
If it was incurred prior to the marriage, it's non-marital. If it was incurred during the marriage, it's marital is the presumption.
Okay. So let's say that it was acquired before the marriage, but it was paid from marital assets during the marriage. Is there a reimbursement claim like we talked about before?
Maybe. I can't be definitive, but maybe when you take into consideration all the other factors, would that be equitable? Because again, when you're dividing debt, it's equitably, not equally necessarily.
And we seem to be saying maybe a lot. We have a statute, but every judge interprets it slightly different, don't they?
They do, and there's different fact patterns that give rise to the obligations.
And one of the things that we hope to be able to do is to bring in maybe a judge or an appellate court justice to kind of talk about that in one of our future episodes.
That would be fun.
But for right now, where we are is that we've still going back to debts. So, okay, so we've got the student loans as one kind. And then we have like your mortgage debt against real property, which would just affect the equity, right?
It just affects the equity and usually follows the asset. And what I mean by that is if, say, the house is awarded to mom, she'd get awarded the mortgage that goes along with it.
Okay. And let's talk about debts that aren't, affiliated with an asset. So, because your student loans are kind of against your education, which is kind of an asset. Mm-hmm. But, if we move to like credit cards, to personal loans from family members, things like that. How are those allocated?
We get that a lot, especially the personal loans from family members, say, for instance, to pay attorney's fees or to pay for one of the children's private education, tuition, things of that nature. Those would be divided equitably if they were incurred during the marriage.
Okay. And if you borrowed money from your parent, so in other words, the parents of the parties getting divorced, isn't it true that money from a parent to a child is presumed to be a gift?
It is, and there's more difficulty determining which is a gift. Is it really a loan, and should it be awarded to that litigant?
So if you're going to borrow money from one of your parents to buy a house, to put your child through college,
Put it in writing.
put it in writing,
Promissory note minimally.
have a
I've got that
process,
going in 2 cases right now. It's ruining my
and
case.
it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars, where, you may have a wealthy parent who helps you fund your house, and the deal was you would pay them back.
Right, and you have the added problem of what's called the statute of frauds, where everything related to a piece of real property has to be in writing in order for it to be enforceable.
So, be careful. If any of you out there are listening to this and you're a parent thinking of buying your child a house, or a grandparent, thinking of helping out the kids with their college education, think about making sure that you get a note to ensure that you do get paid back in the event that assets are sold or there's a divorce or whatever. Is that good advice?
Great advice.
Okay. So, because I've seen that so often where
I have it going right now where the parents bought the kids a house, then they went to a bank, had one meeting, then the kids opened up an LLC, then the kids filed for divorce. And the son-in-law's got his hand out. Where's my equity?
right. And it's really when parents are loaning their children this money, it's really like an advancement of their inheritance is what they're thinking.
True.
But in a divorce, it could be divided, and I don't think you really intended to bequeath to your
Soon to be
nephews
ex-son-in-law.
or daughter
All this equity in the house. Yeah.
or daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with, when people start a business, we have those liabilities. So let's say that one of the parties has a business and there's liabilities, incurred due to the business. How are those allocated?
They usually follow the business. So if the business is awarded to husband, say in this example, then he would get that debt.
Okay. But what,
And then it's up to the attorneys to quantify that. Is it the amount of the debt? Is it set off against equity in the business?
yeah. Credit cards. How many times have you seen it where, the parties may have some credit card debt and then one party or the other, as soon as there's a separation, is out
Jacks
running up the
up.
credit card.
Right.
But it's during the marriage, so it's marital debt.
Right. But therein lies our little safety measure of dissipation. It's
Maybe.
one potential.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. But what about if it isn't dissipation? What about if it's just buying clothes, buying furniture for the new, apartment or home, things that aren't on a third
You
party?
make the request that the individual who incurred it has to be responsible for it.
Yeah. But is that always followed?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Is this again a maybe?
It's again a maybe, depending on the judge you have. I'm sorry to report, or just the behavior of the parties. How did they behave with their credit cards up to the filing of the divorce? And now has there been a spike in it?
Yeah. I mean, it's always seemed unfair to me that one party is paying the debt to furnish the new one's home. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me, but it happens, and it happens all the time.
Yes, it does.
What about, where someone does start spending, we kind of talked about this a little bit in dissipation, outside the norm, not for a non-marital purpose, but outside the norm. They would normally have bought $100 belt, but now they're buying a Gucci belt for $1,000. Is that dissipation?
No, but again, in that circumstance, you would seek to have whoever purchased the item responsible for the debt.
Okay. So when we talk about liabilities, it's really just another entry on this balance sheet we've been working on, right?
True.
And isn't the beginning point of all this to take us back to when we were here a few days ago? Isn't that all about that financial affidavit that you have to start with.
Absolutely. And that's required of all Illinois litigants.
And as we talked about, you've got to be honest on that. You can get penalized by a court. You can be sanctioned by a court. The lawyers can be sanctioned by a court if you're not, being forthcoming.
Right. And you may not know everything, so leave it as an open item on your financial affidavit.
Don't guess.
Don't guess, don't volunteer, but investigation continues does work.
Right. And when you say investigation continues, those are the buzzwords that lawyers use when we're doing discovery, which we'll talk about a little bit later, or when we're responding to a pleading or something like that, where we don't know the answer. And what we're telling the other side or the court is, we're not sure yet, but we're going to continue to investigate. And when we get through with our investigation, then we'll come back and answer this again.
Exactly. Modify the financial affidavit once the information becomes clear via discovery.
Right. So when you see, investigation continues, it's not a big deal, right?
Right.
Okay.